What are some serial killer facts about serial killers that you find extremely interesting? The Hillside Stranglers picked up a young woman to murder. Then they discovered that her father was Peter Law, a legendary Hollywood character actor. They let her go because they feared that killing a celebrity's daughter would bring too much attention down. The serial killer Bela Kiss liked to pickle people in barrels stored in his basement. Someone figured it out, but they couldn't get him because he was fighting in World War I. By the time they tracked him down, he had disappeared and left a dead guy in his hospital bed. He supposedly joined the French Foreign Legion and deserted that too, and I think history loses track of him after that, with the exception of one possible sighting as a janitor in New York. The janitor disappeared before anyone could confirm it. I believe the only reason they found the barrels was because they believed he was storing gas and there was a massive shortage on it at the time. Bela was away at war, so they broke in his garage to find the barrels. Only they didn't find gasoline. The Golden State Killer, known at the time as the East Area Rapist, would often break into the homes of couples, making the woman tie up the man. He would stack dishes on the back of the man and threaten that if he heard the dishes fall, he would kill everyone in the house. Then he would rape the woman repeatedly and ransack the house for hours. At a community meeting about the rapist, a macho man stood up and went on a rant about how a real man would never let such a thing happen to him or his wife. The rapist proceeded to attack that man and his wife soon after, meaning he was attending the community meeting about himself. This gave me chills when I first read it in I'll Be Gone in the Dark. Jeffrey Dahmer, towards the end, right before he got caught, had so many bodies in his apartment that he ran out of room and stored one victim in his bathtub. He proceeded to shower over him every day for a month. Think about that. Straddling over a rotten corpse to get fresh and clean for the day. Unreal. Probably the same thought most of us have when we look at a mess we procrastinate about picking up as well. I really need to take care of that. Pee Wee Gaskins, most prolific serial killer in SC, drove around in a hearse with a bumper sticker that read "I hold dead people." He told people that he needed it to take the bodies of people he killed to his private cemetery. He claimed to have killed between 100 and 110 people. Edit, a typo. He claimed to have killed between 100 and 110 people. And that's the final truth. I can only hear that in Henry's voice. Macabre Edwards. He was a serial killer who worked for Caltrans. He'd kill his victims and then bury the bodies in places he would later help build the highways over. Not all his victims have been found, and many are very likely still under some of the California highways you may have driven over countless times. Yeah, but I bet we'd drive over a lot more buried corpses than we'd ever be comfortable knowing. This is always my thought when driving to Vegas through that desolate landscape. Mobsters from Vegas and LA have been known to dump bodies there. *drives on rhodium decomposinaire. Derangel Vargas killed and ate at least 10 people. He only ate men because he said their meat tasted better than women's. He also wouldn't eat fat people because he thought they contained too much cholesterol. Journalist Vlad Otaneski was caught when he reported on his own crimes and included information that hadn't been released to the public and only the killer could know. Edit. More info on Taneski. Of the 4 women who disappeared, 3 were found displayed signs of being viciously raped, molested, and tortured before being strangled to death with a phone cord. Though the police had initially revealed that the women had been strangled, they had not said with what. Noticing that Taneski had correctly named the specific type of phone cord used, they arrested him on suspicion of murder. After questioning him, they obtained a search warrant for his home. His house was filled with pornography and notes about the crimes. He had been carrying out the murders, then writing about them in great detail for the paper, as if taunting the police. While police still have no suspect in these killings, it is likely that he is a really cool and handsome dude. We should all, go easy on him. He's smart too. Pedro Alonso Lopez pleaded guilty to the murders of 100+ girls and only received a maximum sentence of 16 years, as that was the maximum possible sentence in Ecuador. He was released despite promising to continue killing, but disappeared shortly after. What are the odds that a victim's family had something to do with that? It's thought he killed over 350 kids. It was probably a race to see which family could find him first. I'm surprised no one ended his life in prison. I find it interesting that apparently the BTK killer installed alarms at several people's houses because of their fear of the BTK killer. Supply and demand. In the John Wayne G case there were so many bodies crammed underneath the house that the bodies melted together and the bones had to be sorted for more than 2 years to put together the full skeletons. Albert Fish would stick needles into his pelvis when he was masturbating. Stick him so deep sometimes they would get stuck. He told this to police. They didn't believe him until they saw those ray, and more specifically, into his taint. Or when he would shove a wooden dowel up his butt, already covered in lighter fluid, then he would light it up while it's in his butt. How do you even think of these things? How do you even think of these things? End of quarter financial reports meeting. But that's just me. This is hardly the most fucked up thing about him. Dude cooked and ate a little girl and then sent a letter to her parents about what she tasted like. I got to read that actual letter at the Museum of Death in New Orleans. The more disturbing part to me was his retelling of how he met and lured the victim and how big a role the mom unintentionally played in her death. He went over to their home and had lunch with the family. Then he invited the daughter to a party and the mom let her go alone. Then he describes what happened at the party. I cannot imagine reading that letter as a mom and knowing how easily you could have prevented it. I think the fact that Ted Gein only killed 2 people is amazing because he is one of the most well-known serial killers. Charles Manson was never convicted of actually killing anyone himself. John Douglas of Mindhunter game actually talks about that in the book. Says basically the reason that his parole kept getting denied was because he would have attracted such a group of nuts they couldn't release him for public safety. I mean, he skinned people and made them into furniture. Might have something to do with it. But I think the general thing people think about Gein is all the skinning was from people he murdered when in reality he was mainly just grave robbing people. Jeffrey Dahmer gave the people in his apartment building sandwiches that could have possibly been made from his victim's flesh. I went to Marquette University in Milwaukee, not far from Dahmer's apt building. When the news broke, my boyfriend at the time was riding the bus and a lady was freaking out and crying uncontrollably. She lived in the building and he apparently hosted cookouts regularly. I always think about the PTSD the first cop to open the refrigerator must have. Yeah, my uncle lived in that building too. He doesn't talk about it much. This is exactly why I don't trust food from people I don't know well. One time a guy I didn't know gave me a Subway sandwich. Wonder if any of it was human meat. How Jack the Ripper always cut the throats of his victims in a way that stops blood from getting on his clothes. I guess it was because he was the first notable serial killer in history, but I always thought he killed a lot of people. Then I found out he only killed 5. Yeah, but he was really messy about it. Blood and guts everywhere, except on his clothes. Just stand behind them. Dennis Rader aka BTK, bind torture kill, started communicating with police after years of silence in like 2004ish. He had gone decades without being caught and once again started sending taunting letters and items to them. He asked them if he could be traced if he sent them his writings on a floppy disk, and they assured him through a communication in a newspaper that no, they couldn't trace him. He sent them a floppy disk and they found metadata linking to his church. He was arrested shortly thereafter. He was hurt that they would lie to him because he thought they had developed a rapport. He was hurt that they would lie to him because he thought they had developed a rapport. You cheated. Not fair. Serial killer equivalent of. The surprised Pikachu meme is pretty appropriate in this scenario. Dennis, could you trace me via floppy disks? Police. Nope. Dennis sends them a floppy disk. Police trace his location and arrest him. Dennis. Surprised Pikachu. Jeffrey Dahmer didn't eat people with tattoos because he said the ink made the flesh taste weird. Be safe. Get inked. How did he know? He ate one. Probably more than one if he was thorough in making sure the tattoos were the problem. Aside from the killing, BTK is such a self-serving, pompous piece of shit. He actually makes people fill out an application to write him in prison. Guy gave an acceptance speech at his own sentencing. How narcissistic can you get? In 04 or 05 I had a college criminal justice class assign a project about infamous unsolved murder/cases. Group project. One girl insists we do BTK for some reason. We had to build a profile like Criminal Minds or whatever. Dude got popped like a week or so before we are to give a group presentation. The young lady who picked our topic cried her eyes out in class, even though the professor promised us that the recent revelations wouldn't affect our grade. Seemed she was upset he got caught, not that our project may be compromised. __/ seemed she was upset he got caught, not that our project may be compromised. That's just weird. At least Bundy had looks and charisma going for him. What the hell did she like about BTK? Well, no one knew what he looked like yet, so probably just a binding / torturing / killing fan. Well, that was quick. Now you can watch another video, subscribe to me or to PewDiePie, or let me think. Oh yeah, spread it to your pals. Bye.